I didn't notice the chalk at first. It was the kind of mark you'd ignore if it stayed the same. But it didn't. Every night, it updated. Like someone was leaving instructions for a house that didn't know it was being studied. Lower. I live on a quiet street, 2 lanes, slow traffic, people who wave when they're walking their dogs. Early fall. The air smelled like dry leaves and someone's laundry detergent drifting from open windows. Most nights, I got home around the same time. Not because I planned it, because life does that to you. Work, errands, dinner, repeat. And my mailbox sits at the edge of the curb, under a streetlight that flickers when the wind hits it just right. The first time I saw it, it was a small white line on the side of the mailbox. Just a dash. I figured a kid did it, or someone brushed against it with chalk on their hands. I wiped it with my thumb. It smeared like dust and left a faint, stubborn ghost of itself behind. I remember thinking, that's going to bother me now. Then I went inside and forgot about it. The next night, the mark was back. Not a dash this time, a small angle, like someone tried to draw a tiny arrow but stopped halfway. I stared at it longer than I should have, because it wasn't random. It looked deliberate. I wiped it again, same smear, same ghost outline. And that's when I noticed something else. There were older marks, faded, layered, like this had been happening before I ever paid attention. I'm not a paranoid person. I lock my doors. I don't leave packages out. I don't pick fights with shadows. But I do notice patterns, because my job is basically a loop of patterns. So when I saw that angle, I did what I always do. I tried to make it make sense. The third night, I cleaned the mailbox properly. Soap, hot water, a rough sponge. I watched the chalk wash away, and I felt ridiculous for even caring. Then I set my phone on the windowsill, facing the streetlight, video recording. It was a dumb setup, a glass reflection, bad angle. But I wasn't trying to catch a criminal. I just wanted proof I wasn't imagining the change. In the morning, the footage was nothing. Hours of grainy darkness, headlights sliding past, a raccoon at one point. And then, at 2:17 a.m., a shape crossed the street. Not running, not sneaking, just walking like they belonged there. They stopped at my mailbox. Their body blocked the streetlight for half a second, and the screen went darker. When the light returned, they were already stepping away. I replayed it so many times I could have memorized the shadow. That afternoon I mentioned it to my neighbor, Greg. Nice guy, always outside, always fixing something. He squinted at the mailbox like it was a scratch on his car. Probably teenagers, he said. They do that marking thing sometimes. Prank stuff. I almost believed him. Then he added, but it's weird it keeps changing. And the way he said changing made my stomach tighten, because it meant I wasn't the only one seeing it. That night, I didn't wipe it. I took photos, close-ups, different angles. The mark was a clean V shape now, 2 lines meeting like a tiny roof. Under it, a dot. I zoomed in until the pixels broke apart. And that's when I realized the chalk wasn't just on the mailbox. There were faint traces on the curb, a small line near the storm drain, a dot on the edge of the sidewalk. Like someone started at the mailbox, then kept going. I walked the front of my property with my phone flashlight. The beam caught chalk dust like tiny snowflakes in the air. And the marks, when you followed them, did something I wish they didn't. They pointed. One angle lined up with the corner of my porch where the light doesn't reach. Another pointed toward the side gate, the one that sticks sometimes, so you have to pull it twice. And one line, longer than the others, aimed straight at my living room window, right where my blinds don't fully close. It wasn't graffiti. It was a route, a set of notes, a map of blind spots. The next day, I tested the idea. I stood inside at different spots and looked out, checking what the streetlight could see and what it couldn't. If I stood near the front door, I was visible through the glass. If I took one step left, I disappeared behind a wall. The chalk lines matched that step, like someone had stood outside and practiced seeing me and not seeing me. And then I did something that made my hands sweat. I compared timestamps. The shadow on my phone footage, the nights I found new marks. It wasn't random. It was always on nights I got home late, always when the street was quieter, always when my porch light had already turned off, because I never changed the default timer. Someone wasn't just marking my mailbox. They were marking me. That night, I left the mark. I turned off the living room light and sat in the dark where the window couldn't frame me. I didn't feel brave. I felt stupid. At 2:12 a.m., a car passed slow. At 2:16, the street went still like it was holding its breath. And at 2:17, the porch light flickered. Not because of wind, because something moved under it. I didn't open the door. I didn't shout. I just watched the thin edge of my blinds and waited for the sound of chalk. The chalk sound was careful, controlled, like someone writing in a notebook. And then, this part is what I can't explain away. The shadow didn't leave immediately. They stepped back and tilted their head toward my living room window. Not at the house in general, at the exact gap in my blinds. As if they knew where I was sitting. As if the marks weren't just mapping the outside. They were confirming the inside. Then the shadow moved to the curb and added one last line, longer than the rest, pointing past the porch toward the side of my house, where the crawl space vent is. The next morning I called the non-emergency line. They sent a patrol car. The officer was polite and tired and honest. He said chalk markings can mean a lot of things, or nothing. But he didn't like the direction they pointed. Neither did Greg when I showed him the photos. We installed motion lights that afternoon. I added a camera, not fancy, just enough to cover the porch corner and the side gate. And for the first time in a week, the mailbox stayed clean. I wish that's where this ends. But a few nights later, I walked outside to take out the trash and saw something that made my throat go dry. There were no marks on the mailbox, no marks on the curb, no dots on the sidewalk, because whoever it was didn't need them anymore. They had moved the instructions to a place only one person would ever think to look. Inside the lip of my front door frame, there was a faint white dash, right at eye level, like a reminder, like a signature. If you've ever noticed something small that kept changing, something everyone else would ignore, tell me what it was. And if you're going to check your door tonight, don't turn on the light first.